and welcome to TV Ranking, a new series where I look at some of my favourite TV shows and rank them season-wise from best to worst. In today's video we're going to be talking about Breaking Bad. Now I have separated season 5 into two parts as that's how I've always viewed it. Season 1 was very interesting as we see Walter White, a highly qualified high school science teacher who turns 50. We see how he loves science, but is teaching those who aren't interested. He is somewhat of a pushover when it comes to his wife, but especially at his second job. We see he is a man who gets little respect and gets the worst news of his life. That being, he has stage 3 lung cancer. And that's when the show gets interesting. We see this guy go from pushover to pushing over people who disrespect him or his family. He quits his second job in the coolest way possible and then meets Jesse Pinkman, a local meth cook and former student to Walter White. The two begin to cook meth and we see Walter being good at something even if it is highly illegal. We see the two get into some dangerous scrapes and would see Walt elevating the destructive high he is on by taking a life and standing up to unhinged criminals. We see Jesse come from quite a privileged background, but always seems to be a failure in his family's eyes. He tries to go legitimate, but the life of crime has more appeal to him. This season was a great watch, and whilst has a few episodes more on character development than explosive plot, it's still a very intriguing plot to follow and see these characters improving a little each and every episode and learning more about them. Ranking wise is at number 5. Favourite episodes are Episode 1, Episode 5, and Episode 6. Season 2 is where it really improved as we see both Walt and Jesse begin to make a name for themselves with their product, and whilst they evade the authorities by the skin of their teeth, it still costs them both money and people. We see Walt's lies not cutting it with his wife Skylar, who begins to question what he's up to, and even though he tries his best to throw as many curveballs as possible, it ultimately ends with the two separating. We see Hank, Walt's brother-in-law, suffering from anxiety and PTSD after killing Tuco Salamanca, but also witnessing his new DEA team being blown up by cartel as a retribution. Unbeknownst to Hank, he is investigating his own brother-in-law and the product he's making. Jesse, after being kicked out of his house, finds not only a new place but also love, which is sad to see cut shortly because of his drug addiction and Walt as well. The season has great moments of conflict between the duo, seeing them clashing heads and even fighting each other. We get to see new characters such as Saul Goodman and Gustavo Fring, who while were short-termed in this season, have bigger and better screen time as the show progresses. The show elevates the violent aspect to new grounds which felt impossible from the previous seasons, exploring the cartel and the actions they take. The character development was much more hooking in this season, having episodes highly focused on Jesse and show him being an amazing character and learning more about him. My favourite part of this season is the flash forward aspect we get throughout the show, really adding to the curiosity and intriguing the audience as to what this is. Ranking wise is at number 3. Favourite episodes are Episode 3, Episode 8, Episode 11. Next is Season 3, which to me was a step back, as while it still had the hooking nature with the Salamanca twins of who are they and what do they want, I felt both Jesse and Walt weren't as interesting. In the first half, with Walt quitting meth altogether and trying to get his family back, and then with Jesse coming to the realisation he is the bad guy, but doing nothing of the sort until the last episode. Hank's search for the RV was the most interesting plot of the first half, but after the shooting he becomes quite the bland plot in my eyes. Skylar was more interesting with her plot of having an affair with her boss Ted Beneke just to damage Walt's ego. Walt and Jesse reunite to make meth, but Jesse feels he's being short paid and realises the same dealers selling his product had a kid kill his best friend and wants revenge. Walt has the job of his dreams and feels like he is an equal to his boss Gustavo Fring, but after protecting Jesse, Gus has other plans and slowly starts the great plot of Gus versus Walt. I think this season had a slow start and I didn't feel it was as hooking compared to its predecessor, and whilst the action had elevated to greater lengths, the plot was slow, but I will say this show still has great moments of character development. Ranking wise is at number 6. Favourite episodes are Episode 8, Episode 12, and Episode 13. Next is season 4, where we get to see the rivalry of Gus and Walter begin, as Walt has secured his job to the dismay of Gus, but is in constant fear of how long he has until he is replaced. We see Jesse in a state of shell shock after murdering someone, and Gus uses this to his advantage to separate the partnership of both Walt and Jesse. We see Jesse being quite a useful person to Fring, and even being as good of a cook as Walt. Skylar becomes more involved in laundering Walt's money by buying a car wash, but gets involved in another situation with her former boss/lover. We learn more about Gus and why he's plotting revenge against the cartel, and see his hatred of the Salamanca family, but specifically Hector, which Walt uses to his advantage. We see Hank investigate Gail Bettaker, believing he is Heisenberg, and connects him to Gustavo Fring, and investigates deeper, getting Walt involved. We see Walt manipulating Jesse to help him take out Gus to escape the clutches he had on both Walt and his family, showing Walt is going down a darker path than we thought. Overall, this was a far improvement from the previous season, and was interesting to see Walt's antagonist was as clever and more powerful as him, making it more hooking to see how Walt will upstage him. This season had some of the best episodes, as well as intensity and action throughout. For all those reasons, I rank it at number 2. My favourite episodes are episode 11, episode 12 and episode 13. Next is the first half of season 5, which I felt started well, seeing Walt, Jesse and Mike clearing any messes left behind, i.e. security footage. Afterwards, the season has a few weaker episodes throughout, but it was very interesting to see Walt feeling indestructible in a sense, and nearly everything going his way. We see both Jesse and Walt go back into the meth business, and with the help of both Mike and Saul, they're able to create meth under people's noses. After the events of season 4, Skylar is in a state of shock as she really realises what type of person Walt is and the things he can do, and so to weaken him, she has both of her children moved out of the house. Everyone is trying to move on after Gus. We see Mike paying off the many men who are under Gus's payroll. Hank becomes the ASAC of the DEA department and further investigates into Gus, trying his best to get one of his men to talk, and whilst it looks like his luck may change, sadly it gets much worse. It was also intriguing to see how big of an empire Walter created, but decided to end it for family and because of how much cash he had. This season has some really great episodes, such as episode 5, but has such a gut-punching ending, showing us that crime comes with horrific results. This was a good start to the season. I think the way they ended the first half was perfect, as well as hooking from a fan perspective. Ranking wise is at number 4. Favourite episodes are episode 1, episode 5 and episode 7. Next is the second half, and it was fantastic as each episode intensified. First, seeing Hank go through old case files and realising who Heisenberg truly is and all the actions he's caused, and confronting him all in the first episode. We see Jesse after the events in the first half be in a depressed mind state to the point he's giving away his money. He finds out the truth about his rice and cigarette disappearance and goes after Walt before actually teaming up with the law to have Walt arrested. Walt is now in a state of paranoia and does his best to clean up everything to have no traces of evidence linking him to his previous criminal life. Just as you think Walt has lost, it gets worse as Walt is saved by Todd and his neo-Nazi uncle and witnesses a close relative die. Sadly, Walt's truth is still out there and he has to abandon not only his family, but his original life. We see Jesse forced into making meth with Todd and see he is treated horribly and his actions have horrific consequences to those he loves. The ending was satisfying as we see a return of Heisenberg, who Walt for most of this half has not shown, but now having his ego damaged returns and goes on a suicide mission just to find Jesse. This season was Breaking Bad at its best as each episode got better and better, having intensifying moments of characters, great action with dark consequences and sending the show off in a great manner. Ranking wise is at number 1. Favourite episodes are episode 9, episode 14 and episode 16. Breaking Bad isn't just a great show. From a plot point, it had great character development from the very beginning, great visuals and an amazing soundtrack. It's not only a great show, it became a great franchise with the spin-off Better Call Saul and the film El Camino, which continues Jesse's journey. Vince Gilligan did a great job with all of those, but especially this. And whilst I love this universe, I hope it has now officially ended with the last season of Better Call Saul.